Good morning, good afternoon, Du Bois Academy, or I guess good evening if you're procrastinating on this and doing it right at the end before grading comes in. But anyway, as you can see, I'm at school today. We're still on NTI. I'm still here. So let's get some learning in. First question, can you run electricity? Electricity. Can you run electricity through a mushroom?
Running my guitar through a mushroom.
Yeah, not bad, right? So, next question, question number 2. Bell ringer question number 2. This one's important because it's related to what we're covering in class. Where does most of the mass of a plant come from? Where does most of the mass of a plant come from?
What is something you found out late in life that you should have known earlier but you just didn't?
That all of the mass of a plant doesn't come from the soil, it comes from thin air. Because if it did come from the soil, as this tree starts to grow, we would see the soil levels go down, but it doesn't. The number one element that plants are made out of is carbon, and plants get it from the carbon dioxide in air.
One of the things I'd like to do, besides reading all the lights in my room, is to go over a series with you. Tenetri goes over interesting things on a regular basis, compiling a few of them. So your bell ringer question number 3. Based on the next few clips, what would you consider the most interesting thing?
Here's today's interesting things. Did you know in the Netherlands a couple years ago a train failed to stop in time and broke through an emergency barrier? And you can see in this photo here, instead of it crashing to the ground, it was actually held up in the air by the statue of a whale's tail. That's incredible! Maybe this isn't the worst timeline. This is how a store owner keeps the local cats from using his plants like a litter box. I mean, if it's stupid and it works, it ain't stupid. This is in the Daily Mail 21 years ago. The internet may just be a passing fad as millions give up on it. This is Joseph de Croix and his self-portraits from the 1700s. I don't know, just looking at these, you can tell he was a fun guy. Good to know even 300 years ago the finger point was still in style. Also got those YouTube thumbnails down. This is a jewel caterpillar from the Amazon rainforest in Ecuador. They're so cute and transparent. Check out how high this guy can jump. He jumps a few inches over his own height. That's honestly really impressive. And this is a microscopic toilet made for a micrography competition. I think we need a banana for scale for this one. There we go. That's really small. Happy New Year, everybody.
And what better way to welcome in the new year than with some happy news? So here we go. Bell ringer question number 4. What would you consider the happiest news in what is about to be shown? Bell ringer question number 4. Based on the happy news that's about to be shown to you, what would you like to remember?
Here's some good news. Scotland just blew up its last coal-fired power plant chimney. Over the past decade, Scotland has tripled its output of renewable energy and has a legally binding target of becoming net zero by 2045. Scientists from Cambridge University have invented glitter made from fruit. This is a much more sustainable option than conventional glitter that contains harmful microplastics that pollute our environment. New York City is banning natural gas hookups for new buildings to fight climate change. This will help cut about 2.1 million tonnes of carbon emissions by 2040, equivalent to the annual emissions of 450,000 cars. Shark Island in Costa Rica, described as the underwater Jurassic Park due to the abundance of stunning wildlife that lives there, is now a massive marine reserve, which means Costa Rica is now protecting 30% of its oceans. Last week it was protecting just 3%, so this is huge. Follow for more good news.
Hans Rosling is somebody I discovered back in 2010 through TED Talks. They were relatively new at the time, and yes, 2010 was quite a while ago. It was my first round through college. During this time, Hans Rosling really inspired me to see information. He's the pioneer of data visualization, the idea that you take a lot of information and rather than having it presented as numbers or grammatized words in a book, something that can take hours and hours or even years to comprehend, that can be crunched into one picture, that one single picture can be worth 1,000 words. This old adage has become increasingly true during the age of big data that we're in. We now have the ability to go and visualize information, take things that used to take you hours or years and allow you to see it instantly and make it very memorable in so doing. So, here we go. This is the first of a series that I would like to do for you, in which you have some maps or some graphs that allow you to very quickly understand a concept. Here we go, based on the next series of maps that are supposed to change the way you see the world or change the way you see time. Which of the ones do you find most memorable?
Maps that will change the way you see the world. The red areas have a higher combined population than all of the gray areas. Each of these blue states have a smaller population than Los Angeles County. This is what tree cover looks like visualized across the United States. These are what the population spikes in the United States look like. This is the amount of the world that is covered by Google Street View. These are all the railway networks that exist around the globe. This was roughly the size of the Mongolian Empire at the height of its existence in 1279 AD. Follow for more.
Bell ringer question number 6. Would you rather save one human life or save 2 dogs? Bell ringer question number 6. Would you rather save one human life or 2 dogs?
I have a very interesting moral dilemma for you. Would you rather save one human life but sacrifice 100 dogs, or save 100 dogs but sacrifice one human life? Because some new research just came out that shows that different age groups respond to this question very differently. In general, adults will save the human at the sacrifice of the 100 dogs, but in particular, the kids between 5 to 9 would not only save 100 dogs over a human, they would save a few dogs over a human. So if there was just like, you have one human and 2 dogs, they'd be like, save the 2 dogs. Which not only suggests that the idea of humans being morally superior develops much later in life than we thought, and that it's a social construct, it also suggests that kids are psychopaths.
New York City has managed to increase the amount of revenue, the amount of money it can work with each year. But it's done this in a way that has really made this person very angry. So listen to this person explain how New York City pulled this off. Your bell ringer question number 7, is going to be, how did New York City manage to increase its revenue? How did New York City manage to increase its revenue?
If you live in New York City, you've seen these free phone call and Wi-Fi kiosks. Turns out they're part of a citywide surveillance effort to beef up parking enforcement. The kiosks, which you literally can't escape in Manhattan, are maintained by Sidewalk Labs, which is under Google. And even if you're not using the kiosks, the cameras are giving Google and city officials a real-time view of the streets. That's right, in 2016, the US DOT made a deal with Sidewalk to funnel all this transit data to city officials. Therefore, Sidewalk's real business is combining public and private parking space data, which it rents out on demand to the city. The city then uses that data to know where and when to station their parking enforcement. And why does this matter? Because every year, parking fines bring in more than $500 million in city revenue. So the next time you hear about smart cities, ask where your data is really going.
A couple years ago, it was a really big deal that we had this artificial intelligence that was able to teach itself Pong. This is the idea of deep learning, that it's not just an AI that we train to do a very specific task, but has the ability to teach itself something based on patterns. What new thing just happened? Bell ringer question number 8. What new thing just happened with Pong that's a little bit different than deep learning algorithms, but is also really interesting?
Okay, so scientists taught brain cells in a dish to play video games, and they're pretty good. Let's talk about this. So brain cells can be grown in a dish, that's nothing new. But in this case, they just grew them on top of 26,000 electrodes. And using those electrodes, they stimulated the brain cells to tell them where the ball was in a game of Pong. And perhaps more importantly, those electrodes measured the activity from the brain cells, which was used to control the paddle in Pong. Now, if you can't tell yet, this is crazy. What they found was that these brain cells not only learned how to play, but they got pretty good at it within just 20 minutes. And my personal favorite part, they found that human brain cells in a dish were better at playing Pong than mouse brain cells in a dish. I really wish they would have had the brain cells play against each other, but they didn't do that. So anyways, you may be asking, does this mean that brain cells in a dish are going to take over the world? No. I hope not. No, I'm just kidding. This was just a proof of concept to show that they could build a system that uses electrodes to send information into brain cells and get information out that could be decoded in a meaningful way. They say they want to use this to answer other neuroscience questions, but they also say they hope this gives rise to new systems that integrate biology and computers to create smarter systems that can surpass the performance of computers alone. As a neuroscientist, I'm not really sure how to feel about that, but follow for more neuroscience and please ask your questions below.
All right, those last two were kind of heavy, so let's do bell ringer question number 9. Keep this one light. Based on the next 3 recommended places to go in Japan, which place would you want to go to the most if you could only pick one?
3 places to go when you're in Japan. First up, the Naruto X Boruto attraction at Nijigen no Mori. You do missions that'll help you become the next Hokage. Then you can eat some Ichiraku ramen. Next up, Shinsekai in Osaka. It has a lot of interesting things to do, like the biggest spa in Japan and cool nightlife. Number 3 is Ginzan Onsen. It's a hot spring town with public foot baths, and it literally feels like you're in Spirited Away. Like and follow for more.
Earlier I told you that we would be regularly covering things related to ADHD. I'm going to live up to that now because I have 3 clips for you. 3 clips, all by the same TikToker. I would like you, for bell ringer question number 10, to write down at least 2 things that are not often associated with people who have ADHD, but are relatively common for them. Again, ADHD is something that is not all bad. These are things that have helped him in his diagnoses because they tend to be very common. So again, bell ringer question number 10. Which 2 things are very common for people who have ADHD that are often not associated with it by the average person?
Hey, so it looks like I got some explaining to do. So the last 2 videos I made really bothered a lot of people. And I can guess that many of those folks probably have ADHD. The videos basically have me staring into the camera and blinking my eyes to the beat of the music. And the reason why this can be such a problem for people with ADHD and even overwhelming is because our brain is basically having trouble ignoring the blinking. So when the video comes up, your brain basically has 2 choices. Read the words or follow the blinking. Most folks without ADHD can notice that the blinking is going on, ignore it, and then follow the piece that's more relevant, the words. So then the person with ADHD, their brain might have a really hard time choosing just one stimulus to follow, which can lead to quite an overwhelming experience. Let me know what you think about this one. I'm Dr. Brian. Like and follow this video for more ADHD content from ADHD for ADHD. See ya.
There is a hobby that used to be considered really nerdy and is becoming less and less so over time, and that would be playing with drones. Drones, you know, like remote-controlled helicopters, basically. And we're starting to be able to do really cool things with them. Drone photography is one that's allowing it to have both commercial use as well as really fun recreational use for people wanting to, for example, take excellent photography of trips they go on. But there's something new that we can do with drones. Bell ringer question, last one for you. Bell ringer question number 11 is, what new thing can we do with drones that we really couldn't do before?